Y'all, it feels so good to have the camera back and to be looking at a lens, be able to see like my little thing off to the side. Y'all don't even know. It's so nice. Shout out. This is actually my grandpa who passed away, his old camera. So I'm gonna try to do the best that I can with it. It films in 1080p. So hopefully y'all can rock with it, because today I'm here to talk about how to push yourself when training alone. Let's dive in. All right, my friends. So when it comes to training alone, of course, we don't want to get injured. We don't want to push it so hard that we're going to drop a barbell on our neck. I'm sure we've all seen clips of that. Insert one now.
Jerk this shit, Bob.
Now, the thing is, yeah, that can happen, but that's what we're gonna skirt today, and how you can still train very effectively, very close to failure if like your goal is muscle building and stuff, or you're just really trying to learn how to push yourself harder in the gym. That's what we're here to dive into. And I have 5 main tips. I believe it's 5. I got 5 main tips I'm gonna be talking about today. And I got my trusty old whiteboard, so we're gonna make it fun today. All right, so step number 1 about training alone and how you're gonna push yourself. I bet you can guess, but the first thing is to find your groove. Why did I say that? Well, a couple reasons. If you're not finding your groove, are you gonna be present during the lifts? That probably leads to more injury if we're not very present during the lift, and that's an issue. Now, the other part I want to bring up is it can be different for each person, but it for sure should include prepping your body for your training session. Now, I'll do a video on that specifically later, so we can talk about like the specifics of prepping your body, and for upper body day, a lower body day, maybe we have performance driven goals, whatever it might be, we'll dive into that stuff. But for now, just know you definitely want to prep your body before you just hop into some foundational things, even if that is just the barbell and you're working with that as your warm-up. Now, for example, I prefer to pop my headphones on. I like to go hit the turf. I like to hit my 2, like a breathing exercise that I usually do, and then 1 like mobility driven exercise that I love to do, and then I go hit 2 preparatory movements essentially that help me then perform better in my main lifts for that day. That's what I like to do. It helps me get in the groove. I pop my headphones on. I don't have a lot of time. Like, I love training with people, but it's very limited that I get to go train with people, hang out, train for a long time, and not have to leave real quick. So I'm usually in the gym, popping in and out as fast as I possibly can. And the reason for that is because I'm just limited, right? So for me, I like to throw the headphones on, get in the groove, and just make sure I can tackle my training. Now, that being said, I always like to have a little fun in my prep. I like to make sure that when I'm prepping my body, I do this thing, and I'll put a clip up on screen, but I like to do wall ball, for instance, when I'm doing an upper body day to prep my shoulders and just to have some fun and to move around different than just the mundane, like foundational lifts that I'm gonna go do for the day. Maybe I'm a kid at heart, who knows? But I suggest having some fun at the end of your prep session. Helps me get in the groove. I know some clients that I have do some things that kind of make them feel the same way. I'm not necessarily having them play wall ball per se, but certain movements kind of get them in that same groove. So if you can find that for yourself, I highly suggest it. Now, number 2, if you're not doing this already, you need to, especially if you want to be able to push yourself. And that is track your numbers. That's backwards. I just realized this might not work that well. That's okay. I just realized it's gonna be backwards, but regardless, track your numbers. Maybe I'll throw this away for now, or I'll use it for other instances. But I want you to think about this. Let's say we go train and we don't know. There's nothing going on. We just go to the gym, we train. That's great. We're still moving. I love that. Great job. Now the next layer comes in, especially if you're trying to push yourself. How do we then look at this as a progression and be able to push ourselves with that? Well, for tracking numbers, for instance, this could be reps, it could be tempo, it could be sets, it could even be RIR, or reps in reserve. So how close were you to failure on that set? I love this. It could even be the effort you put into the entire session. So let's just use, for instance, we're gonna use reps and weight for ours, okay? So I'll do sets, reps, and weight, right? So let's say I did 3 sets, I got 10 reps, and then I do a little and let's say I did 50 lb. All right, sweet. Now, I can look at that when I come back the next week and I can be like, okay, I did 3 sets at 10 reps at 50 pounds. This is why I like rep ranges, because if I have a rep range of 8 to 10, well, I know I'm at the top end of that rep range. So is there something else I can do, which we're gonna talk about in a second, but can I do something else with this 10 reps to even do better? Or am I at a point now where I can then progress this 50 pounds. If I can then progress this 50 pounds, we're off to the races. We know we're pushing ourselves because we did more than we did last week. Now, even if, let's say this number was a 10 to 12 rep range, well, guess what? If we got a 10 to 12 rep range, well, if I did 10, maybe that next week I come back and I'm like, you know what? Next week, all I'm gonna do is I'm gonna focus on getting that same 3, that same weight, but I'm gonna go for 12 reps, right? I'm gonna go for 12 reps. Now, what if you only do 11? You still progressed. You still progressed. So don't overstress that fact, okay? Now, I think the biggest thing with this is not to overcomplicate it. You don't need a big fancy app, which we have for you if you coach with us at Mind Pump, which makes it really easy because you can look back and see all your numbers and all that good stuff. So it does help, but you don't need it. You don't need a big fancy sheet. I use Notebook. I have a sheet that I track all my numbers in for long-term stuff, but on a day-to-day basis when I'm in the gym, I prefer a good old notebook. Write it down. Now I can take little notes for myself as well, and it just, I don't know, I just don't like being on my phone when I'm in the gym. If you're like me, try out the Notebook. It for sure helps. I promise you that. Now, the third part of this whole thing of how to train yourself effectively and train yourself hard all by yourself is film yourself. I know, it's so cringy. It is so cringy, but I want you to think about something. If we just keep going through lift after lift after lift after lift after lift after lift, and we're not taking our time to look at ourselves, how do we know if there's other things that we can push other than just the weight? Let me explain. Think about this. It's not only a way for you to look at yourself and be like, oh, yo, sick, dude, I'm getting strong, let me post that. No. It's a way for you to check how your execution of that lift is, number one. This is where you'd always start. This is why I love filming, right? You don't have to do this all the time, but at least just start, especially if you start a new program, you have new lifts, please film yourself. It's so important. If you have a coach, it's so important for them to see it. If this coach isn't asking you for videos, and trust me, they need to be, and you need to be doing it for them. It's very important, at least in the very start, so they can get some type of form down and get you moving and grooving, because execution is number one. If we notice in a lift by watching ourselves that we can just progress that by then executing the lift better, we come back the last example, we would do that same 3 sets at 10 reps at 50 pounds, and we would just make sure execution was that much better, my friends. That's number one. And that's why I love filming. Like, that's where you could really start when you think of the nitty-gritty part of pushing yourself, is start with execution. And how do you know that? You film yourself. Now you can really tell yourself, okay, am I really truly pushing toward that point of failure or that point of performance that I was looking for? For example, I literally just had this happen to me where I was in the gym. Let me take a sip of my coffee. I was in the gym training and I was doing low incline chest pressing, dumbbell chest pressing. And I did 60 pounds and I believe it was like 6-7 reps. I had a 6 to 10 rep range and I watched it and I was like, nah, dude, that moved way too smooth. Like, I was not that close to failure because I'm trying to shoot for what we would say is a 1 RIR, or reps in reserve. I was not there. I was for sure probably like a 3. So I was like, okay, cool, let's see what happens this next set. I was able to squeeze out two more reps. And that has happened a multitude of times for me. And I've been lifting for quite some time. So you gotta check yourself before you wreck yourself, right? So don't just keep thinking you need to increase the weight all the time. See if you can go to execution. How do you know that? Well, you film yourself, right? Now, number 4 on the list is look at other forms of progression, not just the weights. Kind of feed into each other here, right? Because as I mentioned before, this does not always have to be the weight on the bar. We can easily look at things like tempo, control, the execution of the lift. We also can look at, did you match the weight that you lifted last week, and was that last week a progression? If it was, and you came back that next week, that following week, and did the same weight, that's still a progression because it's weight that you just now started touching, and now you can come back and do what? Execute it even better. You slow it down if you need to, and you can make sure that everything's moving and grooving the way we want, okay? I think I might run out of time here on the thing. It's blinking at me. So let me stop this and then I'll rerun it back up by clicking record. All right, we're back. All right, so as I was saying, with number 4, those other forms of progression, right? Did you hit that same weight? Cool, awesome. Let's execute it better. Now, I think the biggest part of this also is looking at, this is why I like rep ranges as well, because if we're looking at other forms of progression than just the weight, we can take a rep range pretty dang high. Now, I know there's specifics, of course, for things like powerlifting and all that, but if we're just trying to get stronger, build some muscle and all that, there's a pretty wide range of reps that we can do. So with that being said, I would always prefer give yourself a little rep range, about a 2 to 4 gap in between, right? So for instance, a 6 to 10 or an 8 to 12 or an 8 to 10, something of that sort really does help, because now you don't have to be so fixated on just that weight every single week. And you can look at even just going up by 1 rep, right? I think that's huge, helps me a lot, and it really does help me push myself, because I have all these other little things to pull on than just that weight that I'm looking at and be like, oh, I gotta get it heavier, Nah, like I can lift that same weight and execute it better. Like that's a really good feeling when you're in the gym, because it takes me to number 5. Remember, this is a long game. This ain't no short game. When we do this, we continue doing it for life. We don't stop. Right? Unless you want to lose the progress you've made, eventually it will happen. We want to stay on top of that. So all said, like, this mentality does not need to come into every single session with you, right? Yes, get in there, train hard, have a good time, like have fun with this whole process, because that's what keeps you coming back and getting more. But I think the biggest thing right now is making sure you manage the times to do this mentality, right? Sometimes I take this amount of effort and I put it into my prep work, or I put it into my mobility work, or even outside of the gym. Maybe I just need to focus on my lifts right now and focus on execution. I've hit a pretty good strength number, whatever it might be on a lot of the lifts, and I just focus on execution and maybe turn up the dial on reps a little bit here and there. But outside of that, I'm looking at nutrition, I'm looking at daily movement outside the gym, I'm looking at all these other aspects that we can look to for progression that also help in the long game. Because there's a lot of this stuff that plays a role into us gaining muscle, losing fat, performing better in a sport, whatever it might be. It's a lot more than just the gym stuff, all right? So I want you to remember that. And let's be real, you just can't keep getting stronger forever. If that was the case, I would be hella strong. The guys that I look up to would be lifting houses by now. Like, it would be absolutely absurd. So again, check yourself before you wreck yourself. Like, don't get in your head too much about this stuff. If you're pushing yourself hard enough, if you feel like you're not, then follow these steps, right? Like I said, number 1, find your groove first and foremost. Number 2, start tracking your numbers. That will really help for you to see, okay, am I pushing it? Can I go up in this lift itself? Then take it into filming yourself. Like, build these as skills, right? These are all skills. You don't have to do everything at one time. But I highly suggest choosing one, building the skill, choosing another, building the skill, boom, boom, boom. And you don't have to do all of them all the time. I don't do everything all the time, but I for sure always get myself in the groove. I track my numbers. And I for sure look at other forms of progression, not just my weights, and I always remember it's a long game. The one thing I usually take out is filming myself. But my coach needs to see things too, so I do it, right? That's all I got for you guys today. That is how you push yourself when training alone. I hope this helped every single one of my clients out there watching. I hope this helped everybody else out there watching. And if you want to join an unbreakable crew like mine here at Mind Pump Personal Training, go ahead, hit the link in the description. You'll be able to find a call link where you'll be able to just book a strategy call with one of the coaches. It might be me, it might not. Either way, we got a bunch of brilliant brains on this team, so you're missing out if you haven't already. My clients know what's up. Other than that, I'm out, people. Time to get some programming.